Callouts and our ed puzzles last week. Let's do a couple review inequalities with exponents on both sides, and then I made one that just looks like a big scary booger. All right, grade divide always, just like when you're solving any equations, you want to get the variables on one side and your whole numbers on the other. I like to work towards the positive x. You can work whichever direction you want, but the answers must be the same. So there is no like, oops, I did it the other way, that's why they don't match. If you do it the other way, they should be exactly the same. So we subtracted 2x, because that's a positive 2x, to get it to the other side. Now I have one variable. That's our one stinky kid. So we're going to move that 1 across the equal, or across the inequality in this case, to get rid of it. So we get that x by itself, or closer to by itself. A negative 7, if I owe you 7 and I owe you 1, then I'm going to owe you 8. And then 2x, remember, is 2 times x. So we're going to divide by 2 because that's the inverse of multiplication. And negative 4, we divided by positive, so it's perfectly fine. So negative 4 is greater than x. And just because if it was the other way, if you'd worked it the other way, you move the 4 towards the 2 because you prefer your x on the left side, then it would be x is less than negative 4. But our animal is definitely eating the negative 4 no matter which direction you write it. There is not an equal to, so we're going to have an open circle at negative 4. And then you can choose a test point. So like I've always said, I like 0. Is 0 less than negative 4? Or if we did it the other way, is negative 4 greater than 0? Is this greater than that? Having no money is a better situation than owing $4, so not greater. So that's a no-go. So we're not going to shade towards the 0. You're going to shade away from the 0. And again, I just pick 0 because I feel like that's a pretty easy one. If positive 1 makes more sense to you, then do positive 1 or negative 1, whichever. In this case, if you wanted to try to see if a negative 5 worked, then you knew color it would work, and negative 5 should color in that direction. So again, like negative 5 is less than negative 4. Owing me $5 is a worse situation than owing me only 4. So owing me 4 means you have more money in your pocket. All right, so number 2, distribute first. We still have our line of great divide. We're going to distribute first, and that's 8 times 5. 8 times a negative 5. And then this is our big stop line, so it's just going to be plus 8 is greater than or equal to 208. Hopefully you see that equal to, and you're thinking solid circle already. We're going to clean up first, so combine our like terms, which would be those constants here. I have a positive 40 and positive 8. Don't lose the negative attached to that 40 with the x. And now we want to get that x by itself. So we're going to subtract 48 because that's the opposite of addition. And then 208 minus 48 should give us 160. Negative 40x is multiplication, so the inverse of that is division. So we're going to divide by a negative 40. Ding, ding, ding. Divide by a negative means we have to flip the sign because of the golden rule of inequality. So that sign is going to flip the other direction. And that's going to be x is less than or equal to a negative 4. Positive negative gives me negative. So now we have our answer. And again, if you worked it, this one that would have been really crazy to work it the other way and a lot of out of the work because your constant was already by itself on this side. So we're going to stick with that one. So we're going to go to our negative 4. It's a solid circle because of that equal to the bar underneath. And then we could do a test point. In this case, 0 is somewhere over here. So if I did 0 is less than or equal to negative 4, 0 is not less than or equal to negative 4. We can check a negative 10 is indeed less than or equal to negative 4 because this direction is the direction you want to not go if you're owing money. If you're thinking negatives are owing, you don't want to owe more. All right, another call out was to ask, well, how do you figure out if it is a solution or is not a solution? So if we go back to number 1, the first one, so is positive 2 a solution to this inequality? Now you can do it a couple different ways. It's not in the colored area, so that means no. You could, if you didn't have this and you didn't want to go through and solve, you can actually plug it in just as that equation is. Like you don't have to solve anything. And so we're going to plug in that positive 2 in the place of x because that's what it's asking. So 2 times 2 is 4, minus 7, 1 plus 8, that's 9, negative 3. Negative 3 is not greater than 9. So that means it is not a solution. Not a solution. Now, let's say, is -5 a solution? Barely on the page, sorry. Is -5 a solution? In this case, if you have it graphed, it is in the shaded area, so that's a yes. Or again, you can plug him in, which just means you're replacing the x value. And that's going to give me a -10 minus 7, 1 plus a -20. And that's going to give me a -17. Is it greater than a -19? And owing 17 versus owing 19 is a better, so that's a greater situation to be in. So yes, indeed, that is true. Also, if you solve it, is -4 greater than a -5? Yes. Is -4 greater than a +2? No. So that means not a solution. Yes means yes, a solution. Now, I've mentioned it in side conversations about putting it in Desmos. I did this here. Now, here is your first equation, number 1. Try to ignore all these. So this is our first one. Unsolved. I didn't do anything. I just plugged it in Desmos. I see it's a dashed line. So that means it's an open circle and it's shaded to the left. And that should match what you have on your paper, except there should be an open circle and just shaded along the x-axis. Now, if you want to check your answer, like you've already solved it all the way through, type your answer in right underneath the equation, and you'll see them graph on top of each other. So as soon as it turns into that weird brown color, that means you did it right. Now, is 2, 0 a solution? It's out here on the right-hand side, not in the shaded area, so it is not a solution. Is -5 a solution? And you do have to put -5, 0 because we're on the coordinate plane. We are dealing with x values. That's why it's -5 with the y value is 0. And that -5 is in the shaded area, so yes, it is a solution. Now for your second one, again, same thing. If you type it in, just as is, solid line is a solid circle at -4, and it's just coincidental these are both -4. And left is shaded to the left again. So that's what we had on our papers. That's perfect. If you want to check your answer again, once you solved it, x is less than or equal to -4. So if we had forgotten about our golden rule of inequalities and we did not flip our sign, then you would see they don't overlap on top of each other. They are in the way of each other. So that's not going to work. It means that this is not the same thing as this. So that means you hopefully could catch your miss on the golden rule of inequalities and then go fix it. So flip the sign, because then that makes it shade in the opposite direction. Working back, so write an equation of a line that passes through the point -3, 0 and 3, 2. This is review. So first we have to solve for slope. I like to stack my coordinates as is, as we talked about, or if you want to use your formula, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and that's calling this the second set and this the first set. But if we stack them, we're going to subtract both sides. That's going to give me a -6 and a -2. We always know that slope rise over run. Whoops, I just about wrote run. Y over x, so rise over run is y over x, so y over x. We want to always reduce this fraction, that -2 over -6. I'll show you before we're done how to do that in Desmos as well, because I've spoken about it. But it is going to be a negative is going to give us a positive 1/3. So our slope is a positive 1/3, because 2 goes into 2 one time and 2 goes to 6 3 times. Now we're going to take this number and we're going to plug it in to solve for x. We have to pick a point. I like any one that has 0 in it, personally, just because it's 0 normally cancels things out, or it doesn't get complicated and get my way. So my -3 is my x, my 0 is my y, and we have our slope. So y is going to be 0. Our slope is 1/3. Our x is a -3. And then we're solving for b, because b's are unknowns. The only thing we're still missing, to write the equation, you need the slope and the y-intercept. We just solved for slope. We need the y-intercept. As a reminder, when we're multiplying fractions, so 1/3 times a -3 over 1, this could very well be calculator inactive, guys, because you should already know how to do this. We're going to work straight across the top, work straight across the bottom, -3 over 3. which does indeed give us a -1. So now I have 0 equals a -1 plus b. You can change that b to an x if you want. This is our stinky kid, or who we're trying to solve for. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So 1 equals b. This is now our y-intercept. So b equals 1. Fill in the equation. Again, it's in the form of y equals mx plus b is usually how they're going to want it. So y equals an x and plus, we can leave it plus, or you can change it to minus if it happens to be a negative in the future. But this much needs to make it on your paper, no doubt, every time. So every time we're doing written work, that much needs to make it on your paper. You're going to put your slope, and then we're going to put our b. And now we have our line.